Hey everyone, it's Thomas here. So this is going to be technically the first posted YouTube video on my channel. Bit of a prayer corner tour. I like it pretty elaborate, as you can see. Just thought I'd explain some things, bit about my beliefs as a traditional Catholic. So normally on Sundays when I cannot get to Mass anywhere, this is where I generally go. I pray here. So let me explain why that's the case. So I, as a traditional Roman Catholic, at least my brand, I do not attend the new Mass. I do not attend post-Vatican II Masses because, from a traditionalist Catholic perspective, they teach a doctrine and a gospel different from what I believe. Those points would be the necessity of the Catholic faith. In some cases, they even deny the necessity of belief in Jesus in general for salvation. They practice prayer in common with non-Catholics, which is the practice I don't believe in. For centuries, the Catholic Church has forbidden that, and in the Bible, only one altar in Jerusalem was permitted to offer for sacrifice to be offered, and church fathers like Saint Cyprian indicated that meant there should be one true church. And in Galatians, it talks about quite a bit about how we should be wary of false gospels. I believe ideally in a world where you'd have a state where it was like with Moses, where the law of the Bible should be the law of the land in a certain sense. That would be my ideal. I don't believe in harassing or going after people who have different religious views than I do at all. But that is like a general principle that I would follow along with. And that's more or less would be my ideal situation. And I of course reject the liturgical changes that have been brought about as a result from the Second Vatican Council. Now, we even have certain prayer books. Let me see. This one is kind of falling apart. I have it under the altar, near my home altar. So here we go. It is literally falling apart. It is Pre-Holy Week changes. It is my traditional Catholic Mass Missal. One side is Latin, one side is English. It gives the text of the Mass as it was pre-Vatican II, which, by the way, I've scheduled another video for the next few months. I've scheduled another video about that very topic, some of the differences. It's not just that they changed some of the Mass person. A lot of the symbolism is lost with the changes, so we stick with the old stuff. And I prayed in English on Sundays when I don't have access to Mass sacraments. Happily, right now, as of this moment, I do have a ride to an Eastern Rite Mass, which I intend instead. But when that's the case, like I'm snowbound or I don't have a ride, this is what I would pray from on Sunday mornings. Here we have some relics. So this is a piece of Saint Wenceslaus. That's not King Wenceslaus. This is a chip of his bone. Yeah. So if you remember in the Bible, in Second Kings, Fourth Kings, I believe, in Douay Rheims Bibles, traditional Catholic Bibles, some of the titles are different. But yeah, in Second Kings, you read about how after Elisha died, he was buried, and there were some people who were going to bury another dead man. Some raiders came along, so they threw him into Elisha's tomb. They came back, and because when he touched Elisha's bones, they came back to life. So we take traditional Catholics and Catholics in general, modern Catholics, to understand this as defense of relic veneration. Now, clearly, this is not a piece of God. We don't worship relics. In the sense we worship God, they're not magical talismans, but God uses them as a means of providing his graces. So basically, how would I describe relics? Basically, by venerating the relic, you're venerating what is associated with represents. So when the woman, that's another passage I will use to support relic veneration. When the woman touched Jesus' robe, she was not worshiping the piece of cloth, ultimately. She was worshiping in the sense that it was something that had touched her God. And that's the sense. So the relics of saints, we venerate them and honor them in the sense that they are things that belong to people who are friends of God. We want to have that close association with him. Also, in the New Testament too, it mentions in the book of Acts how they would take cloths, rub them up on Peter, and touch them to Paul, and they would lay the cloths on people who were ill, and they would recover. They're not magic talismans, but it shows that such type of devotion was practiced in the early church, in the Bible, even if you're using this Bible alone. So yeah, we as traditional Catholics still do that today. What's this? I'll spray first. Another thing that I have is, of course, we're big time into statues. That's the Sacred Heart of Jesus. That's the Apostle Jude, Saint Francis of Assisi, Saint Anthony Padua, which has been a touched relic of Saint Anthony. This is a statue of the Virgin Mary and a relic of Our Lady. That's a third-class relic of Saint Pius X, who the Society of Saint Pius X is named after. Largest traditional Catholic organization in the world. But yeah, and that's a stone from Holy Spring. But yeah, question is, why would we use statues? Because clearly I like them. But whereas in the Bible it doesn't say, don't make images in the Bible. That's what you're probably thinking. Well, we have a reason for that. So in Deuteronomy, it also gives the reason why they weren't to make images. No image appeared on Mount Sinai. That was to reflect the covenant and to emphasize the fact that God did not take power naps. I've read the Iliad a few times over, or at least try to get through it, and gotten through or large chunks of it. One of the things they thought Zeus did was that he could fall asleep, be deceived by Hera, and that they were big, like, superhuman beings. The lack of images was to emphasize that he was not like God is not immortal, and that he's not human in the sense that he can receive. He stands outside of time, space, and you can't hide from him. And you can't be deceived. That was what that was all about. Now, has anything changed since that law happened? Yes. What happened? This happened. We did not see God on Mount Sinai, but we saw a God-man die on the cross of Calvary. We saw a babe born in the stable of Bethlehem. People did see Jesus transfigured on Mount Tabor, and the gospel says, and the word became flesh and dwelt among us, and so to reflect that, new change in the covenant, since the explicit reason given in Deuteronomy was that you did not see God on Mount Sinai, that was reflecting that covenant. That's definitely changed with the new covenant, so we have images in the new. So let me introduce you to some people. That is the Apostle Thomas. That was given to me by someone who, one of my teacher's mothers. She found out I was religious, so she had monks at the monastery of Lazarus commission an icon of the Apostle Thomas for me, who I'm named after. That is St. Francis de Sales, who was a major preacher in Geneva against Protestantism, made Geneva Catholic again after Calvin ransacked it, basically. Yes, I'll use the word ransacked. He destroyed quite a bit of things. I've been in a history of the Reformation class. The accounts of some of the things he did in Geneva, sometimes they fled for their lives. It was not a peaceful transfer of power, what Calvin did. Not at all. There's another crucifix out there that shows Stations of the Cross. A lot of gifted statuary. I collected over the years bit by bit. Every one of them has a story behind it, but this would be like hours and hours long as a video if I did the whole thing. I've seen other traditional Catholics' prayer corners from visiting their home. Yes, mine is way more elaborate than most people's. Yeah. Like most people, it's just like you might have a statue of the Virgin Mary, maybe a crucifix, and a little, okay, see that Stations of the Cross? Put a statue of the Virgin Mary, a crucifix there, and that's like most traditional Catholics. I like having this because it gets okay. Me not going to mass every Sunday or even every day for that matter is something like a big, or how far away it is like a major cross for me. oh, you don't go to go to the new mass because you just don't like the taste. And like, no. The decision to not attend the new mass was one of the hardest decisions I ever had to make. If I'm going to be honest with you. I did it because the gospel of Christ was not being preached there. My first loyalty needs to be to Jesus Christ and his truth. And yeah, I believe that it's the Catholic faith. I look at the history, St. Ignatius of Antioch, first century, he talked about transubstantiation. St. Irenaeus of Lyons mentioned the papacy. Yeah, they talked about, they were just Catholic in the early church fathers were Catholic in their thinking. Absolutely. Ignatius of Antioch in his letter to the Smyrnians, and Irenaeus of Lyons in his work against heresies. If anyone wants to look it up, those beliefs existed. They were Catholic. Period. Full stop. No ifs, ands, or buts. Nothing to debate or discuss about that. In fact, people try to. It's only when people realize how Catholic things are that they say, "Oh, we can't listen to church fathers and everything, take them seriously." Yeah, that's because if you did, you'd have to change your entire worldview, and you'd have to abandon Protestantism. You'd have to abandon a lot of the modernist attempts to reconcile the gospel with modern left-wing values that have come about. I'm not into that. I believe whatever Jesus said, that's true. I'm going to go with what Jesus said, what Christ said, and the early church said. They got it right. I'm probably wrong if I think otherwise. There's Our Lady of Guadalupe, by the way. That was given to me by a Russian Orthodox priest, believe it or not. Yes, I have non-traditional Catholic friends. Unfortunately, he's passed away. There's my books collection. I need to go through it. I was actually looking for a work I want to make for YouTube, use in a YouTube video. Yeah. It can be kind of hard being a traditional Catholic. I'm not going to lie. It's more, I'll say this. You don't become a traditionalist Catholic, Latin TLM only person because you think it's fun. Anyone who thinks they do that just because, anyone who would just go to the Latin Mass exclusively because they think the Latin Mass is prettier, and just refuse to attend Mass on those other Sundays, they have theological problems with what's going on at Mass. If they do that, that's clearly the case. I cannot even conceive or imagine that. And no, we're not going to Protestant churches. Why don't I go so? I know, I actually get this, been asked this. If I think there's all these problems in the Catholic Church, why don't I do what so many others have done and just leave the Catholic Church entirely and say go Pentecostal? Because I'm a convert, actually. I would actually be quite comfortable in a Protestant service on Sunday morning. I would be extremely comfortable. Well, here's the thing. Just because I think the modern Catholics are teaching a false gospel, that does not suddenly mean I think the Protestants are teaching the right one, or the Orthodox for that matter. Because while John chapter 6 verse 68 says, yeah, Jesus was willing to lose even the apostles so they wouldn't accept transubstantiation. I have to accept that's a salvation issue. He also said it's a salvation issue. I cannot. They're not modern Catholics are teaching that it's not a salvation issue, which makes them heretics, but Protestants aren't teaching it at all. Something that's in the gospel. James 2:24 says we are not saved by faith alone. And a lot of Protestants teach that, and the Protestant churches that aren't teaching salvation by faith alone are generally teaching a bunch of other wacky stuff that it would be a list of everything that you should not be doing. I'm interested in being faithful to Jesus Christ. That's why I have churches. If I get a nice community out of it, Christ said you'd be hated by all nations for his name's sake. He'd say, take up your cross and follow me. He said it was be a cross. He didn't say, oh, enjoy your nice vacation and church event that you'll have every day and follow me. He said, take up your cross. He said it'd be suck and be tough. But yeah, I do it for his sake. I love everyone. Wish everyone to go to heaven. And yeah, like I could, I want to make some YouTube videos on this topic and about biblical archaeology and about faith in general and just the beauty of archaeology and liturgy and hope and hope and all sort and hope and visit holy sites for you guys and talk about the Bible and history and all that stuff, church history and everything else. But yeah, I thought this would be like my faith is going to be like a major linchpin of this YouTube channel, so I thought I would show you where I pray. Anyway, guys, that's just a brief little YouTube video. Thought I'd just show you. God bless.